Hello, guys. It is me, Daniel J.
Hi, it is me, Danielle J. Mitchell, your up and coming queen of real estate, and I'm here to talk about in this week's and today's Tuesday tip at 2 closing delays. The first thing is unverified monies, okay? If you are to get a lump sum into your banking account, okay? You have to let your mortgage company know. They have to verify where that money is coming from. If they cannot verify it, underwriting will automatically say, nope, absolutely not. So you want to make sure that if you come into any kind of monies, that it is verifiable, or just wait until you close on your house if you don't necessarily need to put it in your bank account right away. Work history. Okay, verifying, make sure there's no gaps in work histories, all that good stuff. Um, and a lot of times, listen, things go under a microscope. So we're talking about financing issues. Okay, that can delay closing. So typically, your mortgage company, it does not happen with cash, buyers because they already have shown proof of funds, right? So they've shown that they can purchase the property. Depending on the mortgage issues that you're having, it may or may not. It could just cause a delay, and or if it's severe, it could make it so that you cannot close on your home. Okay. Uh, Typically, to avoid financing issues, you just want to make sure that you hand in all documents, that you've done all the pre-approval things that you're supposed to do with your mortgage company. Um, Unfortunately, if you did lose your job, you have to let them know. You have to let them know because you can either find out later in the game and have spent money and investment that you could have kept in your pocket. But yeah, and I'm gonna touch back on that losing your job portion in a moment. Okay, make sure you are getting pre-approved and not pre-qualified is another safety net. All right. Number 2, appraisal roadblock. Again, this can be something that has to do that is congruent with mortgage issues, right? Because you have to get it appraised, and based on appraisal, a lot of times, depending on what kind of mortgages you have, they may or may not give you all the funds that you need for the sale price of the home, okay, if it appraised low. All right. So, but typically the seller will go with the appraised value. Other times they will not, depending, it could be an investment property and the seller's like, absolutely not. I put money into this property and I need to recoup that money. So yeah. The other thing you can do is make up the difference in cash if your appraisal comes low and the mortgage company will only shell out the appraised value. Somehow, some way, have the buyer and seller meet in the middle. Those are fixes for a low appraisal and what can delay or make a closing fall through. Another number 3, inspections, right? Inspection is another way that it can make a deal fall through or delay it. If the inspection is pretty much letting you know that the house is a money pit, then hey, that buyer has the option to either walk away, ask for credit, seller's credit, or they can say, hey, take the sell price of the house down. So it really just depends on the scenario there. And number 4, you could have clouds on the title. Sorry, that was my phone. You can have clouds on the title. What does that mean? You might have liens, right? Judgments, okay? All kinds of things, any debts that the seller might have or someone has on the property, taxes, um, anything in that sort, or, some shady things going on with the deed that can certainly delay or make it so that you do not close on the home. That's why you do that title search beforehand. Make sure everything is A-OK before you get to the closing table. And number 5, unfulfilled contingencies. What does that mean? So we already talked about inspection. We already talked about appraisal. And the agreement to sell, okay, which is the contract I talked about in my previous Tuesday Tips at Twos. That is pretty much what is the deal, right? Is what's making you go under contract, is the paperwork that has you to go under contract. And it has in there inspection contingencies, appraisal contingencies. There are times where those are waived, but if they were not waived, then the seller is obligated to adhere to them, and as well as the buyer, right? Because the buyer has certain time frames to show for these contingencies as well. Okay. Um, Also, there are also times where the seller will maybe, let's say, fix things that come up in the inspection, and then sometimes they're not done right, or they have to be revisited or something, and sometimes the sellers fail to do it properly or to do it at all, and so that can certainly delay or make a deal fall through. Okay. Number 6, cold feet. A buyer can say, no, I don't want to. I'm not feeling good about it. Okay. Now, the seller could do the same. It is an emotional transaction a lot of time when you're buying residential. So it could go both ways for buyers. Okay. Now, I'll start with sellers. For sellers, they do have the assurance of if a buyer decides to back out, even after the seller has fulfilled their obligations, they can recoup the earnest money deposit. We've talked about the earnest money deposit in my Tuesday Tips at 2. But they can certainly keep that money, okay? And they can also, yeah, so that's pretty much their recourse, is to keep that money if something falls through that is outside of, what it states in the contract, just cold feet. On the other side, the buyers have the recourse of, they don't, they can get their earnest money deposit back. And the listing agent can also sue for lost commission. That is a possibility as well. 9 times out of 10, people just walk away from it and just, let bygones be bygones, right? I think we're on number 7 now. Again, final walkthrough fail. So that can have everything to do with inspections, but maybe not. Maybe when you go to do the final walkthrough, all of a sudden you find a leak. It's happened to me. You find a leak. Something burst. Items were not, the garage wasn't cleared out. The basement wasn't cleared out, right? On the day of closing. So these are things that can certainly delay a closing, or, have people walk away altogether. Unprepared buyer, right? That didn't come with enough money to the closing table. Beforehand, you should certainly know what your closing cost is going to be. You should certainly know what it's going to be. And you should bring that amount with you. And if you do not bring that amount with you, that's problematic, right? Something as simple as not bringing your ID. Okay, this is a title company. Everything is being notarized and recorded. You have to bring proof of ID. Okay. Sometimes wire delays happen, typically, involving maybe a grant, maybe the mortgage company. So yeah, these are things that can certainly delay. A lot of times when it's things like wire delays and stuff like that, it'll just delay it. Another thing that will just delay and not necessarily make the deal fall through, is just paperwork is wrong, right? So whether it's the loan documents from the mortgage company, had to re-prepare some documents and resend them, or the title company, it could be something as simple as the wrong name, right, or misspelling of a name, right? So that can certainly delay it, but not necessarily make it so that it doesn't fall through. The last one I want to go over: loss of job. So I said earlier that I will go through losing your job. Listen, guys, at the closing table, and maybe an hour beforehand or right at the closing table, some of these mortgage companies are verifying your employment at the closing table hour before. Okay? If you have lost your job, they're going to find out. They are tighter than ever. So if you think, oh, I'm 2 days before closing, I'm going to just go ahead and get my house, I'm going to close on it, it's going to be okay, you might want to think again. Now, of course, losing your job a lot of times, especially during this time, is not something you can control, but it will certainly cause you to not be able to get your house. And that's unfortunate. All right. So just be mindful of these things that can either delay your closing or make it so that you cannot close. And listen, we want you to close. I have been through many of these scenarios. I think I've been through most of them, of many of them. And I've been to some delayed closings, by a week or two. I've been to delayed closings while we're there at the closing table. And it's like, well, we're sitting here longer than anticipated, right? Because some things just aren't coming together, right? So it does happen, especially during this time. But it's my job to make sure that you guys are prepared and that you are informed. And if something does come up, you know what to do. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining me today for this week's Tuesday tip at 2. Okay. These are the tips that I went over that can cause closing delays or closing not to happen at all. But we don't want that to happen for you. Now, if you are thinking of buying or selling your home, you can certainly, you should know what to do by now, guys. But I'm going to remind you. You can, if I can click on it, let's see, go to bit.ly/DJM consult. Okay, listen, let's set up a virtual consultation, or people are doing in-person stuff, so we can do something in person as well. And let's set up a time for us to meet, for us to chat, go over your option. Whether you're trying to buy or sell right now or in the near future, it's always good to educate yourself and have a plan and know what to do. Okay, you can also contact me at my email address. It's below here. Email address, phone number, all that good stuff. Of course, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, probably LinkedIn as well, and some other things. So you can find me. But thank you guys again. Talk to you soon. Enjoy your day. Remember, there's no place like home, and there is no place like home buying, no place like home selling. Talk to you soon. Stay safe.